BCG acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present.
Just put all your chemical in as per order. The important thing is to give the granules time to dissolve into the solution. And also we've got scales. It has scales on there so we can measure all the chemicals in, especially your bulk chemicals out of shuttles. We can measure, we need to know the specific density of each chemical, which is all different. So you need to know that before you're doing it. But I use the scales and I also put a mark on the shuttle to know that I'm getting the right volume. And using the scales properly, I think there could be a cost benefit as far as using the right amount of chemical versus what the scale's saying.
Welcome back to Shared Ag Solutions by BCG. I'm Janine Batters, and in this episode of On the Horizon Farm Tech, which is sponsored by GE Silos, we're going to be talking batching machines with David Ferrier. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Janine.
I'm so excited about this one, David, because I didn't know much about batching machines, so I'm really looking forward to hearing your insights. But for our listeners, can you give us a little bit of a background on you, where you farm?
Well, I farm at Jil Jil, so north of Birchip, with my wife and my parents. We are growing wheat, barley, lentils, canola. We run a small flock of sheep, which we've been reducing, but we put in vetch for pasture and or hay. Yeah, so that's basically our little operation.
So tell me, David, what kind of batching machine do you have for a start?
We bought a GNS Spraymate batcher, which is a 1,500 litre tank, which we bought the tank for a start on its own. Then we upgraded to a trailer that went with it, which holds 4 shuttles, several enviros and a platform for your granules and smaller containers, your 20s and 10 litre containers. So that's what we went with.
And why did you get one?
The main reason we bought a batching machine was when we were using products like atrazine or turbines Pre-M in lentils, we were actually having trouble with it turning into sludge into the tank. So when we were pouring the granules in, obviously didn't have enough water as the granules were going in or had some sort of issue. So at the end of the tank, my filters were blocking. It was turning into sludge. I wasn't getting the right rate of chemical applied to the surface as a Pre-M. So I had quite a lot of trouble there. So we decided to try a batching machine.
So how long have you had it?
This would be our 4th year running a batching machine. The first 2 years, I think we didn't have a trailer, and then we upgraded to having the trailer, which has been a big improvement.
You love it?
Yeah, I love it, yeah.
How much does it cost you?
The overall investment between the batching machine and the trailer that it sits on, it was about a $40,000 investment overall.
You did it in stages?
I did it in stages. So we bought the actual batcher itself first, and then 2 years later we bought the trailer. Where we talked to Garth from Spraymate, and he said he was making galvanised trailers to go with it, and so we put our name down and got one a couple of years later. As far as efficiency, it's been good. Our farm's a little bit spread out, so we can take bulk chemicals with our 4 shuttles and enviros, go to different locations. So we've got about 3 or 4 different locations that we use to fill up. So as far as efficiency, it's been really good. Other benefits are that we turn the sprayer off every time we load. So we're reducing hours on our engine hours on our sprayer. So there's, I think talking to Garth, he said he's had people side by side with and without battery. He said it's been by half. Our sprayer hours have been halved. So there's a benefit as far as depreciation there.
Spraying hours as in the time to fill up?
Yeah, time it takes to fill up. So I'd work on was taking half an hour to fill up. And it still does take the same amount of time to fill up. It's the same, batching the same chemicals. But it's just, when I come in, I'll turn the sprayer off, cool it down, turn it off, and then go and batch it up, and then go again. So every time I fill up, I've reduced by half an hour.
Pretty good. So it's probably about $50. And tell me about, what kind of boom have you got now?
It's a Case Patriot.
Yeah, and how old's that?
2 years old.
Yeah, okay. So you had the trailer towed around to 3 or 4 different points in your farm. Can you tow it on the back of the boom?
No, definitely not. It's the time you load up with 4 shuttles, so there's 4 tonne roughly, then the trailer and the tank, you're probably up over 5 tonne. So no, we've got a little truck that we've used to tow it around, and it actually, with a tray, we can store other chemicals. So when we go to our other places, make sure we've got plenty of chemical. But yeah, definitely have to tow it with a little truck.
Because I did have a sneaky look at your batching machine last week, and It's pretty big, isn't it? It's pretty impressive.
It
So
is.
you have a little truck to tow it around with.
Yeah.
Do you use it for batching, as in do you get someone else, you ring them up and say, hey, I'm coming back? Or is it mainly just you?
A bit of both. So during cropping, John, my father, normally does a lot of the spraying and I do all the other operations, but part of that is batching. So Dad will ring, say I'm on my way back or I'm nearly done, go over and batch up the next load for him and make sure that's ready to go. It makes it a lot more efficient. So sometimes in that case, I won't turn the sprayer off because I've got the chemical, I've got 1,500 litres sitting there ready to go. There's 2 pumps, so a freshwater filling pump that I'll get probably 4,000 litres of water in really quickly before I actually put any chemical. So I'm filling the sprayer with fresh water for a start. As I'm batching, once I've got my batch made up, I'll turn the fresh water off, pump that in to the sprayer, and then I'll top it up at the end. So it's actually a really efficient operation when you've got someone else. That just takes extra labour to be able to do it.
But then also you're keeping the boom sprayer happy.
Yeah, more acres of sun during the day.
Yep.
Yeah, everyone's happy.
Keeping Dad happy. That's probably pretty important if he's on the boom and you're able to do some other things.
Yeah.
So tell me, how long does it take to decontaminate the batching?
No, it's quite easy. It's more to do with your planning, as you know that's going to be your last load of that particular, or you need to decontaminate. So it's quite easy to. There's nothing left in the tank. In the batching, it's all siphoned out or all pumped out. Nothing left. You put fresh water through, a good volume of fresh water through the taps and all the hoses. But yeah, it's not being more organised and knowing that's your last load for that particular is more important, and just running fresh water through. I haven't had any issues with contamination at all.
How long does it take to decontaminate it?
Not long.
A couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, so can you talk me through? So you're going out and you're going to spray something. What do you do?
First thing, hook up the hose, obviously, and start the freshwater pump and get that going. Have your brew that you know that you're doing. So obviously you get a recommendation from your agros. I've got a whiteboard on there, so I write out exactly what chemical and the amounts that I want in the order, and then fresh water into the batching. So it's particularly with granules, make sure you got a good volume of water in the batching tank first before you put your granules in, and then get all that dissolved.
What inch hose have you got?
3 inch.
Yep.
It's all 3 inch fill. But yeah, basically just put all your chemical in as per order. The important thing is to give the granules time to dissolve into the solution. And also we've got scales. It has scales on there, so we can measure all the chemicals in, especially your bulk chemicals out of shuttles. We can measure. We need to know the specific density of each chemical, which is all different. So you need to know that before you're doing it. But I use the scales, and I also put a mark on the shuttle to know that I'm getting the right volume. And using the scales properly, I think there could be a cost benefit as far as using the right amount of chemical versus what the scale's saying.
That's important because the scales are measuring weight, whereas the drums are measured in litres, right?
Yes.
For chemicals, when you get a recommendation,
It's all in litres.
It's all in litres, but it's better to actually use it in grams. Is that what you're saying?
Grams or in there by weight. So from my understanding, the shuttles are actually all measured by weight, so from their densities. So that's meant to be the right way of doing it. But I'm heading that way. I'm doing more of it, but to know all the different densities of every different chemical, they're all slightly different. So you need to make the calculation from how many litres you want to what the density is.
I love it. Smart to be using the right amount of chemical and you're going to be getting a better job. So what's next? So you're putting the chemical in. What do you do next?
Yeah, once it's all mixed up, you've got your brew mixed up into the tank, you pump it into the sprayer. So you've got your 4,000 litres already of fresh water in there, and then you just add your extra 1,500 litres or whatever the amount you've got in the batching tank, add that in, flush water through the batching tank, and then top up the sprayer.
You've got coupling, so you've got the enviro drums, you can hook straight into the shuttles.
Yep.
How are you actually getting the chemical into the tank?
Linked in a manifold system, so all the shuttles have got cam locks at the bottom of the tank, and they're all linked into taps on the batching machine. I've got them colour-coded, so I know that what chemical is what, and written down on the whiteboard as well. And yeah, it's just pumped or through suction from the environment directly into the batching tank.
What about some of the smaller chemicals or some of the granules? How do you get those in?
Smaller granules are weighed inside there's a platform at the front where I've got a cabinet and some smaller scales, and I weigh those individually, and also for your smaller liquid ones, the 20s and 10s, that are just a pouring jug. So we still need to handle small bits of chemical, but we're trying to avoid as much as we can by buying more in bulk, be safer.
Yeah, that's good. And so I've heard people talking about a spike. So you spike the bag, and have you seen those? Does yours have one of those?
Just cut the bags with a knife.
But some have them?
I think some of them do, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Spike the, but yeah, so you're not going to use 100% of every drum every time, so you'd still need to measure out certain...
You've done this before, haven't you? You've done a few tanks of spray. Yeah. So, David, tell me, what do you do next?
Go and spray.
Go and spray. So somebody said to me they'd heard a few stories about forgetting to unhook the hoses. Has that ever happened to you?
No, it hasn't. I have a good process in place.
What's your process?
Make sure every time I'm finished, I just check and actually take time to have a look and say, yeah, everything's done. The motors are off, the taps are off, and I'm unhooked. So I could see how it can easily happen, but it hasn't happened. But yeah, just taking time and making sure.
Okay, and I saw when I was out at your place you had a lovely trailer there that was full of the drums ready for drum muster. Can you rinse your drums out using the batching machine?
Yeah, absolutely. There's where we pour so with the smaller liquids, when we measure them out and pour them into the tank from the platform, there is a rinsing, well, it's not a tap. You have to push the drum down and it puts pressure through, fresh water through, and spins it and rinses it out. So I would rinse it 3-4 times before I put it into my trailer for the drum muster.
And you don't find that, because I was speaking with a farmer and he said that for some of his drums they won't fit in. Is there enough space?
There's enough space. Yeah, this has got enough space. So I haven't come across that issue.
He'll be happy with that then. That was his question. So what was your boom set up before you got the batching machine? So you've just got a new boom. What did you have before?
We were just filling the sprayer normally through the induction hopper on the side, and we just had the enviros and shuttles just lined up along the side of the sprayer, and just would go along and hook up the hose to each one and fill up the spray that way.
GE silos have been leading the way with their custom-built grain, pellet and fertiliser silos since 1978. Built using Australian-made steel and offering a large range of high-quality, standard and optional features, the team at GE Silos can work with you to ensure you find the right silo to suit your needs. Contact GE Silos today or visit gesilos.com.au for more information. GE Silos, the right storage solution.
Okay, because what confused me a little bit when I was at your batching machine was that the scales for the big tank were at the front, but then when you went up, you couldn't sort of see the scales. How do you know? Do you set and say, I want to put this much in from the drums?
Well, when you're up on the platform, you're measuring in with a 5-litre jug or 10-litre jug. So I'm not really weighing those ones. It's out of the shuttles that I'm probably weighing those into the batching tank, which is right in front of you where the taps. So you turn that series of taps on to suck the chemical out of the enviro into the tank. So you obviously got water in the tank for start. You have to tear the scales and then turn your relevant taps on and off when you've got the right amount. Okay,
talking about how you move your trailer around 3 or 4 spots, how big are the tanks where you put it up to?
All of them are 22,000 litres and they're on the pipeline system. So our spray is 7,000 litres, so we get plenty of tank loads out in the tank, and obviously it's filling as I'm out spraying too. So having the pipeline water has been a big improvement, which we've had for several years, but been a big thing for our spraying operation.
You'd be loving that. So talking about tank sizes, yours is 1,500 litres, your batching machine. I've had a question around antagonism. Do you find that because the tank's smaller than your boom, do you have any trouble with antagonism with the chemicals?
No, I haven't. The way I've alleviated that is I do say atrazine. So if you're doing 100 hectares and I've got 7,000 litre tank, so I need 110 kilos of atrazine. I'll do it in 2 batches so that I've got enough water. So I'll put I'll put 1,000 litres in the batching tank, put half of the amount in that I need, agitate that, give that a good agitation, and then I'll put that into the sprayer, and then I'll do another batch. The biggest issue is not having enough water when you're doing those sort of things. A couple times I've talking to our agronomist, I said to him I wanted one pass in this pre-M, and he said, that can't mix with that unless you get really good agitation and the chemical's actually been dissolved. So I've pushed it a little bit with a few chemicals and I haven't had an issue. So I've something like pysamide and paraquat aren't really compatible that well, but I put the propysamide in, gave it 10 minutes to agitate, and then I put my paraquat in and mix that up and then into the tank and sprayed it out straight away, and I had no issues at all.
So that's an added benefit that you probably hadn't thought about.
And there's a few other situations that we've done, have tried to do that, so pushed it a little bit.
So you've talked about a few things that you like about them, so you can probably mix up a few more chemicals. Bit of a time saver, the depreciation on the machine, which I think is a big one when you think about how expensive boom sprays are. And I was thinking about how many, say you had 3,000 hectares that you were trying to spray, you could do 80 hectares in a tank or something like that. Did a little bit of a calculation, and I think it was about $10,000 a year that you'd be saving on your machine just because it's going to depreciate anyway. Yeah. Obviously, you're in it all the time, but just for that depreciation on the fill time. And I was thinking you could probably get like 10,000, that would probably pay for itself in a couple of years pretty quickly, even if you just started with the one that wasn't on the trailer.
Yeah.
Thought that was interesting. And so I've had a few people talk to me, David, about, they'll say, I'm not sure if I don't know if I really need one. My boom, it already fills up in half an hour. Or they were saying, couldn't you just get a pump, a Venturi, and just pump it straight in and then just have your motor turned off? What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely could. But this is all just set up at a cost.
Nice and easy for you.
Nice and easy, and it works well. So, yeah, absolutely could go down that path. But this has got scales, it's got a flow meter, and what I like is actually Spraymate, Garth's going to go down more automated system. So what he's looking at doing, and I think has started doing, is instead of having taps for on and off for each individual shuttle, those taps are going to be solenoid. So he's actually going to try to set up a system where when you're out spraying, you punch in on an app or something your next load. So when you're still spraying, you'll have a predetermined brew already in the system. Okay, righty, I want to do that one, and you'll get back and that's already batched up, ready to go. So there's saving a bit more efficiency. I'm not sure how he's working out the granular side of it, because that's what I keep asking, how are you doing granulars? And he said, I'm working on it, and smaller liquids, but he's trying to, using the scales and these solenoids on it instead of taps, go to more automation. So there's more efficiency there. So basically, by the time you get back, the batch is done. You don't need that extra labour unit. It's there ready to go, and off you go again.
That does sound very enticing. Can you just, I don't understand what you mean by solenoids.
Solenoids, a little electronic motor that opens and shuts the valve. There'll be like a valve that it opens and shuts automatically once it'll be weighed in. So once you say you want 100 litres of this, it'll turn on, let the 100 litres in by weight, and then turn it off. So they're just, it's all done electronically.
So are you on the waiting list for that, David?
It's on the list.
on the wish list. There's probably a lot on the wish list, I imagine. But that one does sound pretty good, because I was thinking that's where, if you're not handling the chemicals at all, I think that really just takes that safety up.
Absolutely. A lot safer, and the safety and efficiency are the main things there that we're looking at.
Do you find that having the batching machine now, do you find that you are doing things more safely than before?
Well, we're always trying to, always when we're dealing with chemical, be safer. But yeah, I feel that it is safer because I'm buying a lot more in bulk. I'm not handling as much chemicals. Yeah.
So cutting your risk down.
Yeah.
Have you ever found yourself, the batch mixers, it's doing its thing, it's cool. You've got a phone call and, you're on the phone and then, oh, geez, I forgot about the batching machine and things have overflowed?
It hasn't happened. I try not to be on the phone and be distracted when I'm doing it. I have had workmen come over and talk to me, and I'm quite disciplined. I'll turn everything off and have the conversation rather than trying to do that and have the conversation at the same time. But I can see how it can easily happen. yes.
But does it shut off itself?
No, it doesn't shut itself off, no.
So that could be something for the automated one too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so do you know anything about different types of batching machines, like smaller ones? Is there bigger ones?
I think the spray mates, he's going bigger tanks as well. I think he's going to have bigger tanks and even push it out to 6,000 litres, maybe 7,000 litres. So you can do a full tank load and then pump it in. He's looking at as well. Yeah, there's certainly smaller ones. It's just what suits your need.
So what did you decide on the 15?
Probably one of the bigger ones that was there. So to have more volume of water for the granules.
So if you were going to get the same machine again or similar, what would you say? Oh, do this.
There's not a lot. I think there's only been a few little bits and pieces that. So when you're sucking the liquid out of the tank, it actually pumps out 3-inch hose. It pumps out really quickly. So it was the chemical was swirling around, creating a vortex, and wasn't actually sucking the chemical out. But we've talking to Garth, and we've alleviated that issue with putting a bit of angle line at the bottom. But no, I think there's only little things really, but there's nothing much that I'd change other than if I was buying another one, I'd go more automation.
What are some of the challenges that you've had with it?
I haven't had too many challenges, really. It's just, I said, again, minor things. Middle of cropping and there's seals leaking in the pump, so you need to fix that. And the hoses have got brittle or pinholes in them, so we've changed try different suction hoses but no, nothing major that I could say.
Okay, because when I went out to have a look at it, I was like, wow, that's a lot of taps, Dave. That's a bit full on. How did that go? Obviously, you're doing this sort of stuff all the time, but there's a lot of taps.
A lot of taps, and everyone that walks past and sees it, well, that looks complicated. And I had the same thought in my head when we looked at it and bought it. And I actually sat it at home where I fill up the tank, and I sat it there and I didn't use it for a month. I looked at it every time I filled up and I said, oh, that does that and that does that, but I didn't use it until one day I was like, well, I've got it now, I have to actually have a crack and work it out. And it's actually not that hard. There's a freshwater side and a chemical suction side, so if you break it down, it's actually quite easy.
What was the thing that made you go, come on, have a go?
That I actually made an investment and I had something sitting there that I wasn't using. So,
of course.
But I think when it turned up, it was in the middle of cropping or something like that. So I was like, I'll put that there and I'll keep doing what I was doing. And then it's like, rightio, I've got time now. But I said I did spend a good month just looking at it before I actually used it. And I actually set up a series of empty shuttles and put water in and worked it all out first, rather than just, I'll just hook this up to the sprayer and see if I can make it work. I actually set up shuttles and put water in and sucked water out and made it go around and made it work.
And I suppose the support side of it, you've been speaking about Garth, so you just ring him up and... Garth's
really good to deal with, and any questions he's always happy to answer and take my phone call, and support has been really good. And as I said, I had an issue with the vortex in the tank. He come and fix that, and a few other little bits and pieces. The shuttles they were sitting down in the cradle. We couldn't get them in and out of the cradle very well where they sit, and so he's come and done a few modifications here. But Garth's been really good to deal with.
That's good to know. And what about other farmers? Did you sort of ring other farmers that had them, or were you the first?
No, definitely not the first. No, it was just something that we thought that we would do, given that we had an issue. So I didn't really talk to many people. We just talked to Garth at field days a couple of times before we'd actually bought it, and said, well, this is what we're going to do.
So one of the things that I noticed when I was looking at the batching machine, David, was that there was just one hose. Do you like that there's just one hose? Do you think it's safer?
That's a good question. So, yeah, there's one hose out of the batching machine to the sprayer. I'm not sure about safer, but the way that I do it is I put 4,000 litres of water into the sprayer for a start, which is one pump, which has two pumps. So one pump's just fresh water going in and the other pump's doing the mixing and agitation. When you turn the freshwater one off and then turn the batching one to the sprayer, it goes through the same hose. So I do is 4,000 litres of fresh water, batch it up, then I put the batched chemical into the tank. I try to leave at least a couple thousand litres at the end of fresh water to decontaminate that part of the hose.
Through the batching machine?
Not through the batching machine, just through I've decontaminated, or I've put fresh water through the batching machine through that one hose, but I also then I turn that pump off when I've got that all done, and have the fresh water. It's always running because it recirculates. And I put 2,000 litres of fresh water through that hose before I finish anyway, back into the tank. So I've left that room at the end. So I haven't had issues of any contamination of chemical left in the line in between the batching or the sprayer.
That is pretty smart. That's a really good tip, David. What advice would you give to somebody that was thinking about getting a batching machine?
No, just do your research. Make sure you're buying it for the right reason. That if you're not just buying another bit of gear just for the sake of it.
Somebody asked me, I'm just asking you this because you haven't done it, but I was interested to know what you thought. Someone said that, couldn't you just mount a Honda pump on the boom and turn and use that as your pump instead of using your actual boom, and then that would save on depreciation? What are your thoughts about that?
You could absolutely set up. You don't have to buy someone else's ready-made batching machine. You can make your own, which would do the same thing.
You could just save time.
It's there, and I'm not totally mechanically minded, so I'm probably more inclined to go, this is a setup, and I'm happy to buy that, make the investment on that. Yeah, you can make your own and be a lot cheaper and do the same thing. But I think having that bulk water is probably a big enough tank to dissolve granules with enough water is the biggest thing.
Sometimes you think those things are going to be a quick job and they're not, and you'd have to make sure that it was all safe and all the hoses were going to the right thing. So that makes sense. David, what is some of the best advice you've been given, whether it's farming, life? Tell me.
Good question. I would say look forwards, not backwards, because you can't change the past.
And who told you that?
My father.
Wise John. Very clever. If you love the podcast and would like to show your support, please rate us 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends.
BCG's main field day in 2024 is on the 11th of September. The event offers growers and advisors the latest in local agronomic research, including disease management, new varieties, new herbicide technology, nutrition and farming systems. Entry is free for BCG members. To become a member or for more information, visit bcg.org.au or call 03 5492 2787.